Okay, so for this video, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about culture and how it affects the process of place making, which is in essence how a place comes to become to be with its characteristics. So let's first of all define what a place is. So this is kind of a review from first quarter, but a place is a specific point on Earth that is distinguished by particular characteristics. And so when we first investigated this first quarter, we investigated places like New York City, and we investigated places like Netherlands, and we looked at the characteristics of that place. It's kind of the way that you would describe an area if someone asked you what it's like. Well, what we're finding now that we've investigated culture, is that culture very much influences what a place looks and feels like. And as a review of things about culture, remember that culture is what we care about, what we hold sacred, and then how we communicate that. And it contains all those elements of ethnicity, of language, of religion, of pop or folk culture, the things that we material hold in place. So we're going to look at how these things interplace and look at some examples of what that looks like. So first of all, one of the characteristics of a place is its name, and the geography term for that is toponym, and this is just the place name, and this very much connects with the language of the culture, because the name, of course, is used by words, and those words are aspects of the language of that culture. And so if you speak that language, then you access that culture, and it's also a way for them to leave their place, their characteristic in that place. So let's go through some examples. So in your notes, what I'd like you to do is just list the example, and in this case, just list a name or two for that place. So let's look at Quebec here. I'm going to give you just a moment, and I want you to look at the names of the places in Quebec. So as you can see, Quebec, and as we've talked about, is very much influenced by French culture. And so you can see the toponyms of the places are also in French. For example, if you look down here closer to the river, you can see that all of those really are much influenced by the French influence. Like you have the Baie Saint-Paul, which is right next to Quebec, or the Cap de la Madeleine, which is once again a French name, or a Trois-Rivoires, which is right below there. That's French for three rivers, because it's where three rivers connect with each other. So once again, you see the influence of culture in making of the place, in this case the characteristic of its names being influenced by the French language. So once again, in your notes, go ahead and write Quebec, and then write 2 or 3 examples of place names that are influenced by French. Let's look at another example. So let's look at New Mexico. So New Mexico, of course, is located in southwestern United States, and so it's very much influenced by Spanish culture. And so in this case, once again, if you look at the toponyms, you can see the characteristics of the place, in this case the name, is very much influenced by Spanish influence. For example, if you look right in the middle, you got Santa Fe, which is a Spanish name. You've got Los Alamos, which is a Spanish name. You've got Las Vegas, which is a Spanish name. And so you can see a lot of Spanish influence in the toponyms of these places. So same thing, go ahead and write New Mexico under examples, and write 1 or 2 Spanish names that you see in New Mexico. Now, of course, these areas are not pure, and so you might be seeing some Native American influence, you might be seeing some English influence, and that's going to happen almost everywhere because people move. And when people move, they take that culture with them, and so it might influence other areas surrounding that area as well. So let's look at the last example. So go ahead and write for the example Utah, and in this case, we're looking at a religious culture and its influence here. So in this case, it's influenced by the LDS culture, and you can see some influence in the toponyms from that religion. For example, you had Brigham City, which connects with one of their prophets. You have the land of Bountiful, which is a place in reference in their scripture. Heber City, another one of their prophets. You have places such as St. George, which once again another influence from there. And so you can see once again that influence in this case of a religious culture. Now what we're also going to look at is we're going to look at how religion can influence a place as well. In this type of, it's the structure or the layout, or also where people live. And so you have the sacred spaces where universalizing, it's going to influence the building and the structures you may find in that place. Ethnic, you may see the importance of the land itself. But either of those cases, they take that and make it a place for their religion. And so therefore it influences what the place looks like. For example, if you look right here at this map, this just shows the major Christian influences in the United States. I'll give you a moment and just look at this map. And this connects with last week's video with where people live. So for example, you have the Catholic influence on the far right. In the West, once again, very much influenced by that Hispanic influence there. You also have in the Northeast where you have major cities like Boston, New York, which were places for large immigrants from like places like Italy and Ireland. And they, of course, had that Catholic influence and brought their way over. But if you look right here, look in the southern, eastern United States, where you have this dark red, this is the Baptist. And so this is a Protestant religion that is very dominant in the southeastern United States. And this is also nicknamed the Bible Belt because, of course, the Christian faith relying on the Bible, and they see this huge concentration. And you can see it influences its structures. For example, as you drive through the South, you're going to see a lot more Protestant churches than you will like here in Utah or in California or in Maine. Because once again, it's very influenced by that culture. And because it is so prevalent, because it is so influential in this area, you see it even in non-Christian buildings, where you'll see signs or pictures, or once again, emphasizing into this Bible Belt here. So this is a great example where we can see how religion influences what a place looks like. Another example is if you go into San Antonio. So San Antonio is very much influenced by Spanish missionaries who were Roman Catholic. So same thing, they brought this, made this their a characteristic. So if you were driving through the Bible Belt, you would be seeing Protestant churches, but now if you drive through San Antonio, you're going to see this Catholic influence as well. And in this case, you see a lot of these old Spanish missions. So once again, the two places, the South and San Antonio, look different because of that cultural influence of religion here. So once again, another great example to write down. Now, ethnicity can also affect what a place looks and feels like because ethnic groups have a tendency to cluster together within themselves and segregate themselves from other areas. And what that does is it makes places look very different from each other. One of the best examples of that is San Francisco, where they literally have little sections for each different ethnic groups. So the picture on the left is a picture of Chinatown, where this is where you see a large group of Chinese ethnicity. And once again, the characteristics of the place reflect that ethnicity. You can see the signs in their language. You can see access to goods would be access to goods you'd find more common in China. Whereas the picture on the right is also in San Francisco, but it's in a different section called Little Italy. And once again, the characteristics of this place look very different than Chinatown because the ethnic groups have brought their culture, and therefore it makes that place look and feel more connected with their culture. And then, of course, pop versus folk culture can influence what a place looks like. Popular culture very much is influenced with changing the environment. And so one of the best examples of pop culture is off to the right, you see fast food, where you see a lot of businesses who want to make sure their name brand is recognizable immediately, such as the arch of McDonald's. And so they change the environment to make sure that you feel familiar with it. So if you went to a McDonald's in California, if you went to a McDonald's in New York, if you went to a McDonald's in England, you're still going to feel that similar culture because they change the environment to make sure it feels that way. Whereas folk culture are more concerned with interacting with the environment, and their culture reflects that. So this picture on the bottom is in Mongolia, which is a country right next to China, where horses are very much important to them. And so because of that, their culture reflects that horse lifestyle. They live on the plains, they have ceremonies that involve the horses, they have festivities that involve the horses. And so in this case, they're interacting, not changing. So all of these things can make a place look and feel unique. So just take a moment and think of a place, and then see if you can think of what made that place look and feel that way. What cultures, what languages, what ethnic groups, what religions make it look and feel that place.